willing to sing harmony, and I would really appreciate that. If you want to, our first song is hymn number 159. It's a little bit hard to sing harmony sometimes when the words are in back of you, which are in front of you, which they're going to be, and not know what the different parts are. So there's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place. And I'll watch for any of you in the second service and remind you not to sign your name the second time. Okay, the last verse of There's a Sweet, Sweet Spirit in This Place. It's not listening to God. I'm out. Here we go again. Give us the intro. If you say He saved you from your sin, now you're weak, you're bound and cannot enter in. You can make it right if you will yield. You'll enjoy the Holy Spirit that redeems you. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love. And for these blessings, we lift our hearts in praise. Without a doubt, we'll know that we have been revived when we shall leave this place. Okay. The order of this service pretty much threw Donna some curveballs. So if there's any glitches in it, it's not Donna's fault because she is excellent back there at what she's doing, and it's my fault. Okay. We're going to do something just a little bit different on prayer requests today, rather than asking you to vocally give prayer requests that others may not be able to hear because your voice doesn't carry or whatever. I'm just going to ask you to have a moment of prayer for yourself and for whoever you want to pray about. And then at the close of that, in a few minutes, I'll have a closing prayer to commence that or end that part of the service. So if you'll just bow your heads in prayer and be praying for those that you know that are in need. Gracious Heavenly Father, as we bring our church service prayer time to a close today, there have been many important requests and concerns that have been uttered during this time of silent meditation prayer. And so now, as we conclude, we ask that you would be with the families that are in need right now, those that have lost loved ones during the week. Be with the doctors that are treating the those that are sick, and then be with us as we go out into the world, that others can see our concern with them as we go about our daily lives. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. For those who want to follow along in the hymnal, our next hymn is There's Something About That Name. Before Judy starts the introduction, this is a song that we have always sang at our house each night when our children, before they went to sleep. And so it's really a special song for all of us, particularly because of the words that are in it. Some of you may know this as Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
There's something
165 and My Tribute is the next one. And after I picked this song, I realized that I had chosen the wrong song. I wanted to go back to 363, but anyway, we'll do this one because that's the music that Judy has, and that's the words that Donna has. So I hope that, I know you're going to recognize the chorus, but I'm not so sure about the first words. As I used to, Judy laughed one time when I was in between jobs, and I have a teaching certificate, and so I taught. I went and I was a substitute teacher out at the, just all over the school system. I did it all the levels, wherever they were hard up for someone. And so I decided, or I took a call one day, and they needed a music teacher at the junior high school. And they said, the teacher's going to be gone for, I don't know, a time. And so I went out to, I said, I'll do it. And so I went out there, and so when Judy came home that night, I said, Judy, I'm teaching music classes at the junior high tomorrow. And she started laughing. And she said, Mark, you don't know your half note from your quarter note, and you don't have any idea what a full note is, and you don't know sharps and flats. What are you going to do to these kids? And I said, well, I'm going to go out there, and I'm just going to tell them that I don't know anything about music, but I know one thing about music, that you got to open your mouth to sing. And so the kids, you know, they were kind of timid at first, and there was a girl in the class that could play the piano, and who knew her half notes and her quarter notes. And so she said, okay, so we made it through it. And so after a while, the kids started to really open their mouth. And when they came back, the teacher said to me, what did you do to those kids? They are singing so loud now. And I said, I told them, open their mouth. Don't worry about if you can sing or you can't sing. Your teacher will be back in a week, and she'll teach you how to sing. But you can't sing good until you can sing loud. And so anyway, this may be a song that's going to try us on that.
Mark, is your mic on?
It is going to be. I don't like for it to be on when I sing.
I can
I don't
mute
know
it.
if anybody knows this, but when you watch this on Facebook, the only people that you can hear singing are those two people right up there. Tim, my mind is on. The last 5 Sunday messages that I've taught us here at Owensville Christian Church have had many lessons that every church member should know. Unknown to Tim and those that followed, could Tim have stood before us and uttered the words that I absolutely hate to hear a minister get up and say, when they say, the next 6 sermons are going to be on a topic about blank and blank. Or the next 6 sermons are going to be understanding the book of Revelation. Because that just never works out for me. So as far as I know, none of us have ever had a course in homiletics. Homiletics is a Bible college course in how to prepare and present a sermon. I've only heard of the word, never had a class, but I know what it takes to get up in front of people and talk. It takes 3 parts of nerve, 2 parts of a topic that is important to each of us, 1 part of ability to tie a bunch of words together, and 5 parts of not being concerned about making a mistake. And all of this moved in the spirit of making Owensville Christian Church a better place and a friendly place to be. Today I hope to tie the messages together that you've received in the last 5 weeks to grow this church not only in numbers, but also in service. Should I succeed in that, there will be one last message to conclude the series. Tim started us out with the parable of the sower in Matthew 13. All of us know the importance of the right combination of soil, moisture, seed, and fertilizer. We were in church in Raytown for the second devotion, so I can't speak to what he taught that Sunday. But to keep the series alive, it should have been about how the church family nourishes the seed and the soil for growth. Vern moved us into an important area of thought. One of the dynamics that causes me to laugh is how all of us struggle with being more important than everybody else. And nowhere is that better found than in the message that Vern gave us from Luke 22:26. Some may call it selfish, but when I find myself too important for others, then I find myself placing myself in a more important position than what the cause is. And there's a lot wrong with that, isn't there? Do you remember the request of James and John's mother as to who would sit at the right and left hand of Jesus? Wow. You talk about vanity. Why did she think her children were more important than any of the other 10 disciples? Who gets in a mother's mind? I don't know. Concluding, Vern hammered home that the greatest among us will not only be a leader, but also a servant. Last Sunday, Kevin brought us powerful suggestions and steps to improve our leadership skills. He introduced us to how leadership causes change, creates a common purpose, and a purpose to build teams, provides organization in chaos. Remember the story about his desk, how disorganized it was, and he had notes on his desk to tell him where notes were, and then he switched over going from notes to computers, and then he sends himself emails now so that he knows where the things are on his computer. Well, sometimes organization isn't what it ought to be, but at the end of the day, we have to realize the potential in others and ours and blend that all together for the good of the cause. Firmly believing there is no such thing as a bad, short sermon, I have chosen the words of Jesus in Mark 16:15 to tie planting the seed, leadership, and increasing the impact of what we hope to accomplish as a church. It reads, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every living creature." I'm sure every one of you in this service has heard that scripture. It's a parallel scripture to Matthew 28:19. The reason that I chose this one was it's only 14 words. Matthew 28:19 is about 35 words. So, did you get that? We're going to have to change the status quo in the way that we do things if we're going to be able to become servant leaders. At one time, I heard one of the town wags say that we had 13 churches in Owensville. I didn't stop to count, but I know that we have quite a few, maybe even more than that now. Do any of them fit a servant leader profile, or are they simply cash cows? Now, what I mean by cash cows is that someone will come to us, a missionary will come to us and say, well, I've got this big, wonderful project that I'm going to be doing, and I hope that you're moved to send me some money. And so those are the cash cow churches, and I think all churches are guilty of doing that, because a lot of times it's easier to give cash than it is to actually do some type of a service project. So what does a servant leader do? Every church probably does okay with helping their own. Should. All cook meals for those who are under a doctor's care. But do they reach outside their congregation? A servant leader is one that sees someone who needs a home and figures out a way to involve Habitat for Humanity. A servant leader organizes transportation for a person who needs treatments and has a limited ability to handle that on their own. A servant leader hauls someone who can't afford eye surgery to the Lions Club Mid-South Eye and Hearing Institute, and while that person is under observation, pays for their own overnight lodging and the costs associated with driving there. I could go on and on, but our number one question is, how do we change the status quo from being a cash cow as far as the work that we do is? I'm new at this church. I really don't know what the status quo of serving others is. Can someone tell me what their favorite mission project is? I know if Bill Seaman was here, I know what his is, I think. Show me. Okay, and that's Bill's as well. But how many times do we load up 6 couples that go up to Show Me and give a day off to the house parents that never get a day off? I mean, they do this 24/7. And that's what I'm talking about when we become servant leaders. Because Vern told us that we can't be the type of Christian that we need to be without being a servant as well. So, question number 1. Yeah, how do we change the status quo? Good job, Donna. And question number 2, who is bold enough to change the status quo? Now that is another totally different topic. As Kevin told us last week, leadership involves adapting people of all walks of life. Someone may not have the time to transport a person in need of surgery to Memphis, Tennessee, while another person doesn't have the money or a dependable vehicle to do this. How do we bring these two together for the desired result? You see what I'm saying here? Everyone is quick to say no. I don't have the time, instead of figuring out a way to change someone's life. I hear a lot of people say today that if kids would just get off of their cell phones and do something, the world would be a better place. How many times have you heard that? I'm not going to ask anybody who's guilty of saying this, but what is the difference between kids being on cell phones and old people like me glued to a television set? It's a pretty fine line, isn't it? It's, servant leadership gives us an opportunity to change people's lives. We're not improving quality of life. We're changing people's lives when we do that. pretty unfortunate that we encounter these dilemmas every step of the way, that when we desire, should we desire to have a leadership in a different area to impact our community. Question number 3. Will the rest of the church be bold enough to set a new standard of going outside their comfort zone? I got to tell you, when you do something that is totally off the wall that you've never done before, you've got to get used to that. I'm learning to drive again after 55 years. And it's not easy. And being a servant leader is going to be the same way, because it's going to take some time that you may not think that you have, but if it becomes a priority, it will be a good adjustment for you. When the non-church witness this new sample of servant leadership, I believe our example will be a magnet for others to be involved as well. Question number 4. Will we allow new members to lead us in new areas of involvement? Now, this is a really, really difficult question. It puts us all in a very difficult situation, because the opportunities are limitless. We just have to find out where they are. And the individuals that we impact are going to be people that would prefer to be in a better position than they are. Or it may be also a worthwhile community project. All of us must remember, your younger members must be accepted because they are our replacement in service. Did you get that? They are our replacement in service. This is a difficult thing, handing things over to somebody else sometimes, because we think they're not going to do as good a job as I did. Might be, but if you don't give them the opportunity to learn that job, then we guarantee that it's going to be good. Question number 5. Will old projects fade away if the church adopts a servant leadership direction? That's not necessary considering that probably 80% of our current mission projects are cash cow based. However, a new direction may mean loading up a busload of volunteers and heading to High Hill Christian Service Camp, Collie Wilderness Camp, which is our neighbor. It's just 10 miles from here. And anybody ever heard of the Collie Wilderness Camp? Okay, a couple. It's just down the Swiss. It's right along the highway past the substation where you turn to go to Stony Hill. Or we might head to Show Me Home at Barnett. They've got a home in Barnett. They've got homes in several different places. Or we might head to Shiloh up in Shelby, Missouri, rather than sending them $250. Or maybe in conjunction with sending them $250. Question number 6. How will we ensure that a new path of servant leadership is sustainable? Will what is done be infectious? Hands-on service is much more rewarding than just sending a check. But you have to change from watching television to getting off the couch and getting on the bus. And I found this to be exactly what happened last year when we learned that our Kids Site program, which is an ice cream program that we have in Lions Clubs, where we go around to daycare centers and church and elementary schools and screen ice, we found that we couldn't sustain the program the way that it was without additional volunteers. And so I went out and started talking to people at the different clubs as to who could become a volunteer and just give 2 days a year. That was all the requirement. 2 days a year. And so we had 20 new volunteers in the central part of Missouri. We now have more volunteers in the central part of Missouri than there are in the rest of the state, in the other 6 districts that we have in the state. People got off of the couch and onto the bus and got involved in this program. And now, when a message goes out that we've got openings, there's only 2 or 3 on each screening that we do. If you're not the first person to see it, they're usually filled up, because everybody loves to go and do this, because it's so rewarding, because it's not like you send a check someplace and you don't have any idea of what the result of the check is, because the results at the ice creams are immediate. Last week, Kevin told us about leaders taking on tough assignments and pulling them off because they know who they're leading. Our leaders in this church know you. I don't know a lot of you, but our leaders know that. Judy, Linda Giesler, and I screen children for Kids Sites. We're part of the team that does that. We screen children from 5 months of age. They can't talk, but sometimes have very serious eye problems, even at 5 months, up to adolescence. And we've done this enough that when we walk into the room, we can identify who the leaders are. I mean, it's obvious within just a couple of minutes who the leaders are of these kids. And we want those kids, we want those leaders on our side, because when we know that they accept what needs to be done, then the rest of the kids are going to follow their example and their lead. So I'd like to say that leadership in the Army was the same way. But for the most part, it wasn't. It was kind of a top-down authority. And when I was a brand new second lieutenant, it was interesting. You know, I really didn't have anybody to deal with that was going to accept me just because of my rawness. But once the enlisted men, I was the person that was the most in contact with the enlisted men. Once the enlisted men knew what I was doing, they had trusted me, and they knew that I had their back for the other officers up the line, then the relationship changed. And that's the kind of change that's going to take place in our relationships that we have with everybody else when everybody else knows that we have their back, that we can fill their needs, that we can take care of the things that they want to. So now I want to hand out something, and it's going to take a little bit of time to do this. So I'm going to ask Bob if he'll help me on this side of the room, and give one of those to each row, please. And would you help me on this side of the row, and give one in each row. And as they're doing that, I'm going to explain to you what this is. And I was the district governor for the Lions in Central Missouri last year. And Lions clubs traditionally have pins that they give out for different things that happen. And that's what all of these pins are. This pin is my pin. This pin is a pin that was a past international president of Lions clubs. This pin is a guy that I really I marvel at. Do we have enough in the back? Did you have enough back there, Bob? I really marvel at this guy because we have a learning program in Lions clubs, and the learning club, or the learning is you get your bachelor's degree, you get your master's degree, and you get your doctorate degree. This guy got all 3 degrees in 1 year, and I can't tell you how much work he had to put into on that. So when I finally met him, I asked him if he had a pen, and he said he did. And then the last pen here was an instructor of mine in a class that I had. And it was at this class that I learned about this book. And the book has on it the words, a deviation of the words that are there. It says, what got us here won't get us there. And it's up to us. And that's what that pen has to say. Because the point is here that when we get to this point in our church relationship, the things that happened in the last 55 years of this church are not going to be the things that are going to carry over. We're not going to be singing "To God Be the Glory" in our church service 20 years from now. They won't even have the words of that song memorized because they listen to music on the radio and they go to camps, and then they bring those songs back to us. So I have to relearn that. I have to relearn 60 years of being churched in a different church. And so, and so the reason that I had that inscribed on the pin was, it tells others that the first things that we did in whatever organization that we belong to are not going to be the things that are going to get us where we need to be at some time in the future, because we're going to have to be able to adapt to that. If you want to read a great book, what got you here won't get you there. You can go see Patty at the library and check it out. I don't suggest that you buy it like I did, but you probably won't find a deal like I found when I bought it. I found 5 on the internet for no money, and so the shipping was more than the money was. So everyone struggles with adapting, right? Everyone struggles with rejection. We all struggle with failure. But I found this quote, I found 2 quotes from Albert Einstein. Now, the first one was, failure is success in progress. Failure is success in progress. And the last one was, I love this one, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. And I think that's, some of us aren't the inventor that Thomas Edison was. Servant leadership is not easy. And it's not because it won't work. It's because, as we've seen earlier, many of us will have to change our behavior. So how do we become a servant leader church? How do we become the servant leader church for miles around? We start with small increments, baby steps, and small projects. Painting somebody's porch, building somebody a deck to access their house easier, doing a little paint job for them, raking leaves in the fall time. I'm ready for some kids to come over to my yard and rake leaves in the fall time, aren't you? And so that's what we have to do to grow on our success and accomplishments and service to others. Bob Russell of the mega church Southeast Christian in Louisville, Kentucky, was asked in an interview how much time he wished people to set in his Sunday morning worship service. And I was shocked at his response. His response is, none. I wish that our church members would be willing to give 1.5 hours in service to others. If our members did that, we would turn Louisville upside down with good deeds. Maybe Owensville Christian Church needs a Sunday morning worship with communion, offering, and service to those less fortunate than us. I don't know. That's a church leadership decision. Money can't buy a servant leadership reward. And Vern hammered that home in the message that he gave us. Now, since there's no such thing as a bad short sermon, I have taken the scripture that I read to you a little bit earlier that was 14 words long, and I have paraphrased it into 6. Serve the gospel everywhere to everyone. And that's exactly what we can do if we become a servant leader church. They can see the gospel through the things that we do. So it's going to be time for the invitation now. I'm not a professional speaker, I'm not a professional invitation giver. But I know that there may be others in the church that I don't know that are willing to accept Christ, know that He's our Lord and Savior, and want to be baptized. The baptism is ready. The only thing that has to be done is lift the screen and pull off some styrofoam that's off of it. So if there's someone that needs to be baptized today, we can do that. If there's someone that wants to join the church, we can accept your acceptance of faith and desire to join our membership here. So we have Savior is Waiting is hymn 435. this morning is hymn number 230, and his name is Wonderful.
Today, I try to come up with themes whenever I do the communion, and so today is bear with me. And you will figure it out. But anyway, living in Alaska, you learn a lot about bears. You know that if it's a black bear, that you have to be aggressive. Black bear like to eat dead prey, so you have to be aggressive. One time I was painting the steps on the porch of the house. Janet came out the door frantic and yelling, "You got a bear behind you." He was about from here to the wall behind me, and it was this young black bear. And so I jumped up with my paintbrush and I started yelling and screaming and jumping, and boom, well, I mean, he took off, scared the daylights out of me. And I think he was just curious what I was doing. Thought maybe he might help me. But the brown bear is a different story. A brown bear is actually a grizzly bear, for those of you who like hunting. The grizzly that we see in our parks down here out west, they are smaller than the brown bear. And the reason they're smaller is because they not only forage on wild game, but they forage on grass, eat a lot of grass. So they don't get as large. The brown bear, he has the privilege every year of eating salmon. And because he eats moose and salmon, he doesn't eat as much grass, he gets much bigger. A brown bear is just the opposite. You've got to play dead with the brown bear. I can't imagine one clawing me and working me over and trying to still play dead. But that's the difference in the two bears, and so you need to know that when you live in the wild. It's actually up there where I lived, I carried a gun every day. But sometimes my guard was down. One day in particular, I was carrying canned salmon out to my truck. I was going to deliver it up to the highway to a friend that was passing through to take home because he liked the stuff that I smoked. And I walked off the porch. I had a breezeway between my port house and my garage, and I walked out there. I put the first case in, went back in the house, grabbed the other because I had to meet hands up at the highway. And I started down the steps, and as soon as I got down on the ground in that 6-foot breezeway, I had a head that was about 24 inches across, about from here to Jim from me. And all I could do was freeze. Goosebumps got all over, scared me. I was frightened to death. Usually when they flap their jaws and make the lock sound, the hammering sound out of their jaws, it's not a good sign. But for some reason, he turned and went right back to the breezeway. And I'd estimate him to be over a 9-foot bear, so it was a lucky day. So you have to learn how to live around these critters. I got to tell one more quick story. I had Janet and Earl, my neighbor, were sitting on the porch. I was sitting on a picnic table about 30 feet away. A brown bear came charging. And Earl hollered, "Bear," because my back was to it. Him and Janet ran up, they were already in top step, ran up on the porch, left me out in the middle of nowhere. bear runs 45 miles an hour, so I was never that quick. So I did the next wisest thing, and I jumped on top of the picnic table and threw my arms up as high as I could. And that bear, about from here to where the back of the room is, stopped. Took his paws like this, rolled his nose around, thought, boy, this guy's bigger than me, and turned around and left. So here I am shaking, and I'm expecting Earl and Janet to be standing on the porch with my gun that sits right inside the door. My wife went in and got the camera. That's a fact. I said, Janet, I'm about to get eaten, and you got a camera and not the gun. Well, the third bear that I've never encountered is the polar bear. And the polar bear is the only one you cannot hunt. The trivia question is, what color is a polar bear? And everybody's going to say white. Actually, if you were to take the fur off of a polar bear, it's more opaque, it's a creamy, it's a clear color, because they have hollow fibers in their hair. And their skin is white, and that reflection makes it look like it's snow white. But the thing about a polar bear you need to understand, the reason you can't hunt them is because when you get in the wild, they hunt you. They lay their forearms down like this, stick their neck straight out, and their haunch, rear end goes up in the air, and it's like skis, and they sneak up on you to kill their prey. That's why if you were ever at a football game at Barrow, Alaska, at every end zone, each side of the football field are snipers to protect from the bears, because they'll come after you. That's why at Prudhoe Bay, those things, they've got to have guys while they're working out there in the oil fields. They've got to protect because of the bears. They'll sneak up on you. And they blend in so well. Satan's kind of the same way. He sneaks up behind you. You can't hunt him. He finds you. And he sneaks up, and you just never know whenever he's going to sneak up on you. We know that he came in the form of a serpent with Adam and Eve. We know that he really tempted Job. We know that throughout history and Bible he tempted. Likewise, he did the same whenever he was, when Jesus started his ministry. He was tempted. You know, even on the cross, Jesus could have gotten down. But he didn't, because he had to fulfill what he was sent here on earth to do. And as we prepare for communion, when we come here on Sunday morning to take this communion, we are actually putting on our armor. We're putting on our armor to realize the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, and this is our chance to recognize him and thank him for what he has done for us and his ability to forgive us of our sins. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you each time we have the opportunity to come in your house. Thank you for all the volunteers who come up and help preach and take care of the services for us, and we just thank you for the word, the gospel. We thank you for your son Jesus, the sacrifice that he did for us on the cross, and we just pray that we search our hearts and seek forgiveness as we partake of this loaf and cup, which resembles your shed blood and your broken body. In his name we pray. Amen. Today, the offering prayer will also be closing prayer. There'll be two of them here in a row. Dear Lord, we just thank you once again for this day. We thank you for your Son Jesus. And we pray that you be with this congregation, be with the leaders of this congregation. Once again, thank you for those who have stepped up in the leadership position. Just continue to bless this church as you've done. And I know that you will be with us in all the things that we do. We just pray as we pass the plate around, we just pray that you would bless the gift, bless the giver, and help us to realize how much you have blessed us with. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, for the announcements, we have the Amp Corn Maze. That's going to be Saturday, October 19th. You can talk to Kevin Lay if you're interested. And Camp BBS Day is next Sunday. Our regular service will be at Grief. Look back over the summer camp and BBS we had this past year. Children's classes will not be to with us. OCC Fun Day, chili cook-off, October 19th at Rosebud Community Park. Check out the bulletin for more details and sign up for the chili contest at the Q line. Empty shoe boxes for Operation Christmas. What does it feel like Christmas outside right now? The Operation Christmas child are available in the lobby. Grab a box, fill it with gifts, and bring it back. And there's additional details and shoe boxes in the book. CY Superstar, October 11 and 12, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. You can talk to Brandon Greger. And our congregational meeting will be Sunday, October 13th. There will only be one worship service at 10 a.m. Once that service is over, then we will have our annual meeting. I believe that was it. Yep, I think that's it. Okay, at this time we'll have our closing song, and we will dismiss at the end of that.
2 or 3 things here. Please leave your pins for the next service in the inside of that were passed out to you. Just leave them on the inside. That way the people that are in the second service will have those to take a look at and maybe write down the message that's on them. Number 2 thing is there's still some donuts out in the back. So we're thankful that you came to church today. And so if you want to go out and grab the donuts and coffee, they're out there. And number 3 thing, thanks for worshiping at the Owensville Christian Church today. Our chorus only on Sweet, Sweet Spirit. Give us the same intro that you did at the beginning of the song. This. There it is. Okay. Holy Spirit is the voice. Okay. Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love. And for these blessings, we lift our hearts in praise. Without a doubt, we'll know that we have been revived when we shall leave this place. See, you can get through a service and have a few mistakes and it all works out. How's it going?
Bill,
Judy had the.
Well, we don't want to be in the way.
And he's an excellent judge at character. So he's an excellent judge at character, that's why she's
You're teaching us. Yeah, and she and I had talked about a different stuff. Yeah, of course. And that's and she marked change for the next thing.
So what I did.
No, what you did is perfect. Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it.
Good to see you, sir. Message this morning, the whole thing.
Did you get your own extra?
Yes.
We were really concerned.
Go get your
So the girls had a big soccer
I
game
already
last
got ours.
Get ready to walk over
That's
to
good too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, they love that.
Well, that even out there. And he never grew up with it. You know, he's going to be like this.
Surprise. In all fairness, I never learned at my anniversary. That makes me feel better.
I knew about it. I was with you.
you can shut my microphone off and just leave it off. Yeah, do that. Yes. Yeah, okay.
He mutes it anyway. So
Hey, Mark. What's your name? If you think it's not invitation, I was trying. Where are you going? Sorry. Peggy Yates probably used to do this. I don't think you like her.
Sounds like you need someone who knows what they're doing electricity. What's that?
Yeah, we're gonna, just leave it there, we're gonna use it for the next service, okay?
Part of Mark's message.
I'll try to remember that. I'm gonna myself a note.
We did. We went. We came back. Yeah.
Yes, they're part of his message.
If you did good. I've been over by there a couple
Say
times.
hello and then you say mama.
Nathan, are you? Oh, now, I wait for that one.
Boy, you better.
Awesome. How about you?
They're doing good, yep.
This is St. Louis.
Yep.
Oh, Fallon.
He has 3 sons. Imagine how many times his wife is. 12, 9. There you go. All right, let's do
That'd be cold out.
Today he got
I didn't recall that.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to our service today. I think the folks in the first service are getting out of bed earlier than they were supposed to, so I guess we can say that you all are the late sleepers. But anyway, we're glad that you're here today, and we hope that the songs that we sing will be an important message to you. And so you've had an opportunity to talk for a while, and so that's all good too. Our opening hymn today is, if you want to, the words are on the screen in front of you, but they're also on hymn number 159. There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place. And also, it's time for the greeting period. Well, the next thing that we have on our agenda here today is prayer time. And I'm going to change that just a little bit. Rather than asking each of you to, or any of you that have prayer concerns to mention them, I'd just like for you to pray about them silently for a few moments. And then after you've done that, I'll have a closing prayer. And we will handle our prayer time that way today. So if you'll bow and pray for the specific needs that you know about, that will be fine. Great God, Heavenly Father, this moment of silent prayer that we've had, where our congregation has lifted up to you individuals that need to be prayed for, that might need to come to church and worship with us, for those that are having illnesses, for the opportunity that we had to thank you for the prayers that we uttered to you that have been answered. We're grateful for all of that. And we know that there are many people now that are suffering from depression because of lost a loved one and other situations that you know best. So now, as we lift them up to you and as we ask you to bless the doctors that are treating them, guide and direct us in the things that we do during the service, and they be pleasing in your sight is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Our next hymn is hymn number 227, if you want to sing harmony. And it's there's something about that name. Now, no service, no planning for service goes the way that it's supposed to. And this next song is a song that I love. It's very difficult to sing. I intended to sing the song one page over. And so when Donna and I came and worked together to set up what the service was going to be, she said, Mark, we've never sung this song in church before, at least not up on the screen. And so anyway, might throw you a curveball, 365. You'll recognize the chorus, but you may not recognize the verse of it. It's entitled My Tribute. It's got To God Be the Glory in it. That's the song that I wanted to sing, but this is going to be the To God Be the Glory song for today. Okay? So, children, it's your turn to depart and give your parents a little bit of peace and quiet. Should let Vernon and Danny come up here and handle the rest of the service. They were in the first service this morning, and now they're in the second service. And so they're going to maybe know it better than I do, but I left out something in the first service, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. The last 5 Sunday messages that have been taught to us are lessons that every church member needs to know. And unknown to Tim, when he gave us our first devotion, and those that followed, could Tim have stood before us and uttered the words that I exactly hate to hear. Today we begin a 6-part sermon series on blankety blank. Or today we begin a 6-point sermon on understanding Revelation, or anything that's in a series. You know, I immediately think, do I really want to be here for the next service? Because I just don't like those series. But it turned out that when Vern asked me to speak on the 22nd, I didn't know what any of the others were going to be presenting. But it turned out to be I think, a pretty cool series and unannounced of the people. As far as I know, none of us have ever had a course in homiletics. Homiletics is a Bible college class in how to prepare and present sermons. And all of us are newbies at that. And I heard the word mentioned one time, and I went home and looked it up because I didn't know what it was. So I'd heard of it before. But as those that have presented in front of me have done, here's what it takes. It takes 3 parts of nerve. It takes 2 parts of a topic that's important to each of us. It takes the ability to tie words together in one part. And then it takes 5 parts of not being concerned about making mistakes in how the service goes. Because we're all want to be moved in the spirit of making Owensville Christian Church a welcoming and friendly place to be. Today, I hope we begin to tie these messages together to grow the church both in number and in service. Should I succeed in that, there will only be one message left in the series to present. Tim started this out with the parable of the sower in Matthew 13. All of us know the right combination of soil and moisture and seed and fertilizer. We were at the church in Raytown for the second devotion of Tim, and I messed up something there, didn't I, Richard? I know. See, club up number 1. 4 to go. We were in church in Raytown for Tim's second devotion, and so I can't speak exactly what he taught about, but to keep the series alive, it could have been about how the church family nourishes the seed and the soil for growth. Vern moved us into a very important area of thought. But one of the dynamics that causes me to laugh at all of us is how we struggle at being the most important in any group that we're in. We all struggle with that. And I struggle with that as well, because there's a lot of times that I will think, well, my situation, myself, is more important than what the big cause is. And the cause of this church is to evangelize our community. And Vern hit that home in Luke 22:26. So some may call it selfishness. Others may call it something else, but we have to be willing to put ourselves in a secondary position to what the cause is. Do you remember the request of James and John's mother when she was talking to Jesus? She said, "Which of my two sons will sit at your right hand and your left hand?" Now, why this woman thought that her children were more important than any of the other 10 disciples is unknown to any of us. But you talk about vanity, she had it. She said, "My sons are the most important to God." Our Jesus knew that that wasn't the case. And concluding, Vern hammered home the important message that the greatest among us will not only be a leader, but they will also be a servant. Last Sunday, Kevin brought us a powerful message on suggestions and steps to improve our leadership skills. He introduced us to how leadership causes change, how it creates a common purpose to build teams, how it provides organization in chaos. Remember when he told the story about his desk? He said it was organized chaos. He had notes on his desk that told him where other notes were. And so he decided that that was no way to live. And so he decided that he was going to put everything on the computer. And so, do you know what you remember what he told you he did now? He sends emails. He sends himself emails to determine so that he can know where his notes are. Now, that's taking organization to an extreme that I'm not willing to go to. But anyway, it causes us to realize that we are important to the cause, and we have to blend all of this together for the good of the cause. Firmly believing that there is no such thing as a bad, short sermon. I have chosen the following scripture as the one that is shorter than all of the other scriptures that were given, to tie planting the seed, leadership, and increasing the impact of what we as a church hope to accomplish. And there the verse is in front of you in the Bible. It's 14 words long, but they're a powerful 14 words. "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every living creature." Matthew 28:19 is the parallel scripture to that, and it's about 30 words long. So Matthew was more verbose than Mark was, and I gotta love that. So did you get what that message was there? It said, "Go ye into all the world," and that will be a change in the status quo for us, because we don't know if we'll be able to do that. At one time, I heard one of the town wags say that we had 13 churches in Owensville, and I wonder if any of them fit the servant leadership role, or are they simply cash cows? Now, what I mean by cash cows is that if a need comes up, do we throw money at it? Or are we willing to get personally involved in that particular cause? I'm new at this church. I don't know what the answer is to that question right now. But we need to talk a little bit about what a servant leader does. And every church probably does okay with their own membership. They should. All of us cook meals for those that are under a doctor's care, but do any of us reach outside our congregation? That's our comfort zone, isn't it? Servant leader is one who sees someone who needs a home and figures out a method to involve Habitat for Humanity. A servant leader organizes transportation for a person that needs treatments or has a limited ability to provide that. A servant leader hauls someone who can't afford eye surgery to get it done for free at the Lions Club Mid-South Eye and Hearing Institute. And while that person is under observation, pays for their own overnight lodging, plus the expenses that are associated with their car. I could go on and on, but the number one question is, how do we change the status quo? I'm new at this church, and I really don't know what the status quo is of serving others. But I'd like for someone to tell me what their favorite mission is that this church is involved with, if you know it. Favorite mission.
Anything to do with the children.
Anything to do with children is a mission. That's a mission right here in town, isn't it? Show me, yes. And I know that's Bill's favorite. And Bill would probably like for somebody to go along with him and help him when he does what he does up there, because we'll talk about Bill in a minute. But these are the things that cause us problems. Is are we willing to change the status quo? The next question is, who is bold enough to change the status quo? Because it's just easy to do what we do day after day, time after time. And as Kevin told us last week, leadership involves adapting to people to all walks of life. And all of us struggle with that. Someone may have the time to transport that person in need of surgery to Memphis, Tennessee, while another person doesn't have the money or a dependable vehicle to do this. How do we bring these two together for the desired result? You see what I'm asking here? Everyone is quick to say no. And I'm going to point out something that really irks me this day and age. I hear people say, if kids would just get off their cell phones and do something, the world would be a lot better place to be. Who hasn't heard that? I'm not going to ask you to show your hands. But what I would say to that person is, are you willing to get unglued from your television and do something to help other people? Because that's where servant leadership hits the road, is when we're willing to do that. And so, unfortunately, we have knee-jerk reactions to everything that we do. But at the end, self is not more important than the cause. And Vern hammered that home in his message. And Kevin talked about the same thing. Something that Kevin did last Sunday really hit home to me, because there's a lot of times that things that we do, you don't realize exactly what we do. He talked about the leadership that he has at his school, which he says is awesome, and I know that it is. And I know the support that he gets from that leadership is awesome as well. And I know that he's got kids that are brilliant. They're much smarter than most of us in this building. And they do incredible things. And so, basically, I think what Kevin told us was that sometimes you just have to move yourself a little bit out of the picture and let the other things take off that are going to take off if the leadership is there. And so that's an important thing. We encounter all of these dilemmas every step of the way when we desire for leadership to increase the impact on our community. Third question: will the rest of the church be bold enough to set this standard of going outside of our comfort zone? I encounter this every day. We've never done it that way before. What if it works and fails? These are just leadership questions that we have to be courageous enough to set the standard of what the church could be doing if it desires to move in that direction. When the non-church witness this example of servant leadership, I believe our example will be a magnet to others to be involved, not only maybe in our church, but maybe other churches to participate in those types of things as well. Question number 4. Will we allow new members to lead us in new areas of involvement? Boy, this is a sticky wicket as far as I'm concerned, because our opportunities are limitless. They don't have any choice at school. The seniors graduate, and they've got to find somebody else to move into their position. But in churches and organizations, we have a problem of allowing others to take up leadership positions. And there's a lot of worthwhile community projects out there, and there's a lot of individuals that would prefer not to be in the position that they're in. All of us must remember, our younger members must be accepted because they are our replacement in this service. Question number 5. Will old projects fade away as the church adopts a servant leadership direction? I don't think that that's necessary, considering that probably 80% of our current service projects are money-driven, as I referred to earlier, the cash cow syndrome. However, a new direction may mean loading up a busload of volunteers and heading to High Hill Christian Service Camp, or the Collie Wilderness Retreat that's down in Swiss that belongs to High Hill Christian Camp. The Show Me Home at Barnett, or the one that Bill always goes to. I bet Bill's always got at least one empty seat in his pickup when he takes clothes up there. Or we might take a real trip and go up to Shiloh in Shelbina, because they do about the same thing, rather than sending them $250. I don't know what your desire is. I don't know what your plan is. I just know that there are other things out there that could make this church be more known to others and more accepted. Question number 6. How will we ensure that new path of servant leadership is sustainable? That's always everything. The bottom line is if we start on something, will we be able to continue to do it? Will what is done be infectious? Hands-on service is much more rewarding than just sending a check. But you have to change from watching television to getting off the couch and getting on the bus. Judy, Linda Giesler, and I screen children for an organization called KidSight. And we get assignments from this organization, and we screen children from 5 months of age to adolescence. And obviously when we're screening 5-month-old children, it has its challenges because they have to focus on a camera that we hold up in front of their eyes. And but that 5-month-old child cannot tell its parents, my vision is blurry, I can't see something out of my right eye or my left eye. The camera will tell us all of that. And when we go and do this, all of us walk into a classroom, and immediately we try to figure out who the leaders are in that class, because we want those leaders to say to us, I'm going to make this happen. They have that kind of an attitude. I'm going to make this happen. And when those leaders, when we have them on our side, when we have these children on our side, then we know that the rest of the kids will probably follow their example. And servant leadership is exactly like that. So I'd like to say that leadership training in the Army was the same way, but boy, it wasn't at all. Leadership in the Army was really a top-down authority until you got to us lowly lieutenants and the enlisted men. And the lieutenants needed the experience of the enlisted men, and often the enlisted men initially just put up with the lieutenants and our not knowing what we were doing. But when they finally knew that we had their back and that we were on their side, then everything was going to be all right. This congregation isn't an old one. In fact, I can remember when church was first held in the basement downstairs here. I can remember when there wasn't an Owensville Christian church here. So this is an important message to us that we need to be willing to adjust as time goes on. And on the side of each one of the pews, I believe. Now, I had some help a little bit earlier today. The twins came up and said to me, Mark, look what I found in each one of the pews. And they had all of these pins in their hand. And I had asked people in the first service to leave the pins on the pew where they were seated. So anyway, the twins aren't here to take any, and don't do anything to them. It was cute as could be. They just thought, oh, look what somebody left, and they were helping. So, but anyway, here's a pin. And in Lions clubs, when you're district governor, which I was last year, you come up with a pin to to show, to explain what your year is all about. And so on this pin, if you'll look on the small print, some of you are going to have to get your glasses on. If you'll look at the small print, it will. There's a message on there on the arch, so the pin is in the shape of Missouri. It's got the arch on it. It's got all of the sports teams, and regrettably, I had to put the stone in the Kansas City Royals championship because theirs was the most recent. But anyway, there's a message on there. Can you read that message? Shirley, what's that message say?
What got us here won't let us leave, won't get us there. It's up to us.
Okay, right. What got us here won't get us there. It's up to us. And the message there is that the things that we've done in the last 50 years are not probably going to be the thing that's going to attract these people here to church. It's not going to attract the young people. And so we have to adapt. We have to move away from songs that are out of the hymnal and get used to the songs that they hear on the radio. Which I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to television. So I'm really at a disadvantage. But the message on the pin is that the things that we've done in the past are fine and need to be, and we need to continue to honor that history, that tradition. But is it going to be the kind of things that's going to work for the church in the future if we're to continue? So what's inscribed on the pin is I think a model of servant relationship. Now, I totally left this out of the first service, so this is going to be a little bit different. But I believe here are some rewards of what we do when we have a servant leadership, and I've seen this happen in many different organizations. But I believe that the dividends of servant leadership are pride in our church, a feeling of cooperation. I mean, we have to get along to go out and rake somebody's leaves, right? Because we all don't want to be raking leaves back where other people just rake them. And so we have to cooperate with each other. We have to have a plan. And everything that everybody can do something. And there's going to be some people who will say, I can't do anything. I can't go out and do anything physical. Can you prepare a meal for us when those that can do something physical come back here to the building? I think you can, and I think if we are ingenious enough, we can come up with something for everybody to do. The fourth thing that I have up there is recognition for caring for others. And I don't think that there's a better reward than anything that we do. Because I can tell you, when we go into an eye screening and we find a 7-month-old baby that has an astigmatism in both eyes, that baby their life is changed, isn't it? When the parents get glasses for them that the optometrist is going to give them, and gradually they're going to get rid of all that blurry vision that child has. And the rewards that we get for other projects like this in helping others are, as the commercial says, they're priceless. And then the last thing up here, it has low costs and high rewards, because we're talking about service projects in our community that maybe we can find other partners with. And it won't cost us anything to do it. Maybe the person that needs that ramp up to their house has the ability to buy the material, but they don't have the ability, they don't have enough money to do the rest of the work. Everyone struggles with adapting. Everyone struggles with failure. Everyone struggles with rejection. I love this quote, these two quotes from Albert Einstein, the great scientist and physicist. Failure is a success in progress. Get that? In other words, you're going to make mistakes along the way, but eventually you're probably going to get it. And then this last one. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. And I don't think any of us are going to go to the extreme of finding 10,000 ways to make the filament in a light bulb to work. But Albert Einstein was willing to do that. Servant leadership will not be easy. Kevin came from a school of thought that said that you stand up in front of the class, you give students this, and this order, and he found that wasn't the best way to get students to be motivated. And so all of us have to do this, and the reason that it is so difficult is it's going to take a change in our behavior. So how do we become a servant leader church? How do we become the servant leader church for miles around? We have to start with small increments and baby steps. Be willing to make mid-course corrections and grow our success and accomplishments and service to those that are less fortunate than us. Bob Russell, some of you may have heard of him. He was the minister for 30 or 40 years at the mega church, Southeast Christian in Louisville, Kentucky. Was asked in an interview one time of how much time he wished for people to step inside a service just like this. And you know what his reply was? None. He said, I would rather that my church members be willing to give 1.5 hours a week in service to others. If our members did that, we would turn Louisville upside down with good deeds. Maybe Owensville Christian Church needs a Sunday morning worship service of communion, offering, and service to those less fortunate than we are. It's not every Sunday, but maybe it wouldn't hurt. Money can't buy the type of servant leadership reward that comes from that. Now, in keeping with, there's no such thing as a bad, short sermon. I have taken the 14 words that were in Mark 16:15, and I have brought them down to these 6 words. Serve the gospel everywhere to everyone. And that's as simplistic as we can make it as a church, as individuals in the thing that we do. Now, I'm not a professional asker for someone to become a member of the church. But I do know that in all of our churches that you probably have friends that are in a pew either beside you, maybe have invited you. Maybe you're not a member of this congregation, but you're a member of somewhere else, and you want to transfer your membership. And so today we want to give you an opportunity to express the feeling that you believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And so we're going to do that as we sing our we sing our invitation hymn. So if you'll be standing, I'd appreciate that. And our invitation hymn, if you want to sing harmony out of the book, is 435. The Savior is Waiting. And it's also on the screen here in front of you.
What is your 230 if you want to flip over to the songbook.
The theme for today's meditation is bear with me. I have a few experiences I want to share with you. Things you need to know about a bear when you live in their territory. If you ever get in confrontation with a black bear, be sure that you're aggressive when you fight. Because a black bear, if you play dead, he likes dead things, so he's going to eat you. Okay? I was painting my porch up there in Alaska, and Janet come flying out the door, almost ran over me, knocked me off the porch, and said, "You got a bear behind you." So I turned around, and there was a black bear about 15 feet behind me. So I just kept my paintbrush in my hand. I jumped up, threw my arms up in the air, and started yelling at it, real aggressive. Boom, he took off. Because they don't want to fight. They want to be the aggressor, and especially they like the things that's already deceased. A brown bear is different. And just so you know, if you go to Yellowstone or Glacier National Park and you see a grizzly, the grizzly and the brown bear are actually the same family. The only reason the brown bear is bigger, the grizzly eats meat and vegetation. The brown bear eats meat, and he also eats salmon. And because of the nutrients, he gets much larger. So a large brown bear could be all the way up to over 10 feet tall. So they're very huge. The difference now is a brown bear, if you ever run across him and you're in a bad situation, you play dead. Because he wants to kill his prey. So you have to understand this. I was loading salmon in the back of my pickup, and I got careless. I let my guard down. Because normally if I leave the house, I'm always packing my gun where I lived up there. And so I took the first case of salmon, put it in the back of the truck. I was in a hurry to meet a guy. Went back in the house, grabbed the other case, and I was heading out. Well, I have a 6-foot wide breezeway between the house and the garage there. And all of a sudden I heard something come to a halt, and I turned and looked, and right here where Chuck is, I was facing a brown bear with a head about 24 inches wide. He would have been close to 10 feet tall. He was huge. He was so close I could smell his breath. And I've got goosebumps, and I'm sitting here trying to be as quiet as I can be. And he popped his jaws at me. And then for some reason, very thankful, he turned and ran the other way. And I'll tell you, it took me about 30 minutes to overcome that sheep. But it must not have been a Christian bear, because it didn't say, "Thank you, Lord, for this meal I'm about to partake." It went the other way. But one more story that's very interesting you have to know about the bears too is the brown bear, you've got to show him that you're bigger than him, because he won't take on a bigger bear. I'm sitting on my picnic table by the fire pit. My neighbor and Janet are sitting on the top step of the porch. And they're looking that direction. I'm looking at them while they're visiting. Earl hollers, "Bear." him and Janet jump off and take off for the house. Well, I'm out there where I can't get away from it. It's too close, because they can run 45 miles an hour. So I jumped on top of the picnic table, raised my arms as high as I could, got on my tiptoes, and that bear came to a screeching stop about 30 feet away, stood up, rolled his nose at me, and kind of looked at me and thought, boy, this guy's bigger than me, I'm not going to fight him, and he took off. Another lucky day. I'll tell you how lucky I was, and how much my wife loves me. Her and Earl ran to the house. I always keep a gun by the front door. My wife was standing on the porch after the bear left. She didn't have my gun. She went and got her camera. She wanted to see this needle. I couldn't believe either one of them got the gun. Anyway, so the polar bear is opposite of all other bears. I've never encountered one and don't have a desire to. The trivia question is, what color is a polar bear? And they're not really white. They're fur. The fur is actually a kind of a clear cream color with a hollow fiber, and that's why they're so good in the water, and that's why they stay warm. But it's their skin that's white that reflects that and makes it look as white as they do, snow white. But a polar bear is the type of critter that he's going to lay his forearms down like this, stick his head out, put his rear up in the air, and he's going to use his forearms for skis. And he's going to sneak up behind you. You don't hunt him, he hunts you. That's why whenever you up there in the Prudhoe Bay where the oil fields are in northern Alaska, that's why they have sharpshooters stationed all around while the workers are there. Those bears will sneak up on them. That's why if you go to a Barrow football game, way up north, at each end of the field, all the way around the field, they got sharpshooters to watch for the polar bears to attack the boys during the game. So they have to protect them. Satan's just like that polar bear. You don't have to hunt him. He'll find you. And he's going to come up behind you. He's going to sneak up on you. Okay? He's the same way. He tried, in the Garden of Eden, had the perfect world. Just like the polar bear, snake, Satan. He deceived man and woman. Likewise, he deceived Job. He tried to destroy Job. Satan tried to get Jesus to sin while he was fasting. Satan's always present there. He's trying to deceive us. He's trying to sneak up behind us. Just like at the Lord's Supper, the last supper, if you read the account, I am beyond doubt that it was Satan that snuck up on Judas. That's why he deceived his Savior. And so, what we're here to do today is we're here today to put our armor on. Because Satan's going to come up behind us. He's going to come after us. I guarantee it. He does me, at least, all the time. But when we gather around the table, we're here to put our armor on to protect against Satan. We want to give thanks to God for the sacrifice that Jesus gave on the cross for us. Yeah, he could have taken himself off. He had the power. But instead, he gave his body, his blood, for us, for our remissions of our sins. And today, that's what we want to do as we gather around the table. We seek forgiveness. We want to put that armor on and protect from Satan. Let's pray. Dear Lord, just thank you for this day, the opportunity to gather in your house, to study your word, to sing praises, to gather around this table, to ask for forgiveness as we all fall short. And we just thank you for your son Jesus to give his life. And these emblems here as we partake of the loaf and the cup. Be with us and help us to forgive us of our sins and seek you in everything we do. In Jesus' name, amen. this church. Just pray that you continue to be with this congregation as you have. And we just ask that as we leave this place today, that we would take you with us in our hearts, and that we would share the knowledge that we know of you and just share Jesus with everybody we come in contact with. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. That prayer there is, we're going to do the announcements, and that was our closing prayer as well, so we're not finished with the announcements. We'll be standing and Marty will listen our closing course. The Ant Farm Maze trip, Saturday the 19th of October. Kevin Lay is your contact person. Camp PBS Day is next Sunday. Our regular service will include a brief look over the summer of the camps at PBS. So the children's classes will not meet, but stay up here with us. OCC Family Fun Day and Chili Cook-Off, Saturday, October 19th. We'll be at the Rosebud Community Park. There's details in your bulletin. The sign-up sheet. We'll be part of that cooking, Marty. Empty shoe boxes, Operation Christmas. Shop are available in the lobby. Grab a box, fill the gifts, and bring it back. It's hard to believe that we're getting that close, but additional details and shoe boxes. Shoe boxes aren't in the bulletin, but you can get the information there. CIY Superstart, October 11th and 12th for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and interested, contact Brenda Grader. The OCC congregation meeting will be Sunday, October 13th. There will be one service at 10 a.m. And following the service, then we'll have a meeting, our annual meeting, immediately afterwards. And that's all the announcements. So if you would please be standing, and Mark will lead us in our closing course. Thank you, Mark.
The chorus of Speak.